Today we're discussing the greatest gun lie ever told. And it's all over the internet and it's happening right now, even to you, which is why you should pay attention. Because I find this lie to be very detrimental to the community as a whole. It builds unrealistic expectations of firearms and it can lead to dangerous decisions being made down the road. What lie am I referring to? I'm talking about the over-exaggerated round count lie. This is all over the place. It's very pervasive here in the 2A community and it needs to be stopped. So I'm going to share examples of this exact lie happening that I've gotten in my comments section right around here somewhere, and we're going to talk about how we know these people are lying. This is a lie, and we're going to debunk it by using basic facts about service life expectations of small parts in firearms. It's perfect, right? Now, I do want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them I can get out here, make weird videos like this one, and then get back to actual preparedness content here in the near future. So big thanks to Midway USA for always helping me out. Now, I have a lot of guns, I shoot a lot of guns, and you know what? I've had a lot of malfunctions. It's just part of the deal, and it's an expectation of any mechanical item. But unfortunately, these people would have you believe that they can shoot 100,000 rounds through their budget-friendly AR-15 without a single malfunction ever. And that's a miracle because literally it's impossible. But hey, they're going to tell you it anyway. And for example, this PSA M16A4-ish thing that I have right here, which I built based on some input from viewers on the channel, well, it already had a malfunction. In fact, 3. But that's for a different story and a different video. But I just wanted to demonstrate that yes, these things do happen. Now, how do we know they're lying? Let's talk about AR-15s first, and then we'll talk about pistols, and hopefully the examples that are flashing over here give you some things to consider about why this is such a problem, okay? So, AR-15s parts life expectancies. That matters, especially when someone tells you they've shot 20,000 rounds through an AR-15. Something should have failed by then. This is how we know they're lying. What are those things that should have failed? Well, first off, your general AR-15 barrel is going to last between 10,000 and 20,000 rounds, depending on composition as well as some other factors. Your bolt in your AR-15 is going to last about 10,000 rounds and then likely need to be replaced. You have an action spring or your buffer spring that also should only last about 10,000 rounds. We have extractors and extractor springs that only last about 5,000 rounds. We have an ejector and an ejector spring that only last 5,000 rounds. And then we have gas rings that only last about 5,000 rounds. So somehow, with these budget-friendly $400 AR-15s, people are shooting them for 100,000 rounds without having to replace the barrel, without having to replace their extractor or the extractor spring. The gas rings are still good to go. They basically have a miraculous firearm. Good for them. I wish I could find one of those, but for now, I'll just have to properly maintain my weapon systems. Now, here's the thing. Even in the military, the standards of malfunctions that are acceptable in a 6,000 round test are 9. You can have 9 malfunctions in 6,000 rounds, and that's considered to be acceptable. Now, that's still a very good failure to success ratio, but regardless, they understand that these are mechanical things with ammunition that's from a different source of some kind that is supposed to work together in tandem, and every so often, something's probably going to go wrong. So, they get it, I get it, these people don't get it though. The other thing to keep in mind is that a company that you might have heard of, BCM, they've been running a project called the Filthy 14. Back in 2010, they put out an article about it. And in that article, they talked about how they reached about 30,000 rounds at the time with that rifle. And here's the things they had to replace on that gun, which was, well, being put through some very torturous testing. At 13,000 rounds, they had to replace the extractor spring. At 16,000 rounds, they replaced the bolt carrier group. At 24.5 thousand rounds, they had to replace the extractor and the extractor spring. And at 30,000 rounds, they had to replace the extractor spring one more time. So that should tell you that even when a company who manufactures these rifles is out there testing them, that certain things have to be replaced eventually. The other thing to keep in mind is that when someone says something like this, right? I want you to remember this and just consider it in your head, okay? I've put 100,000 rounds through my $400 rifle without issue, all right? 100,000 rounds of 5.56 NATO costs about, I don't know, $50,000. So they've spent 50 grand on ammunition just to shoot it through a $400 rifle. I don't know if I necessarily think that lines up properly, but hey, maybe it does. And look, I can't guarantee for a fact that these people aren't telling the truth, but the likelihood of it being true is so low that I feel good about making this video. And if I had 50 grand to drop on ammo, which I don't, I think I would at least spend a little more on a rifle in order to enhance my experience. Just my opinion, but what do I know? Now, let's talk about pistols because that comes up here as well, especially because I put out a video on Kimbers, which are notoriously problematic, like let's be honest, but at the same time, it was more of a, hey, just in case you're looking to do this, here's some things you need to consider. Well, a lot of people came back on that video very upset because, their Kimber has gone 20,000 rounds without a single malfunction, right? So let's talk about pistol failure rates. One person recently commented that they've shot 2,500 rounds through an M&P 10mm without a single malfunction. Now, firearms manufacturers definitely aim to have pistols without a single malfunction ever, but of course they understand that ammunition can be problematic and the gun might just have a problem here and there, and so they have a percentage rate that they're willing to accept. And usually that's less than 1%. But even 0.1% of 2,500 rounds is 2.5 malfunctions. And that's if you have a 99.9% reliable pistol, which most people would be happy about. But in this situation, this person has made it to 2,500 rounds without 2.5 malfunctions, right? So like the math isn't even quite there, but sure, is it technically possible? Yes. Is it likely? Probably not, because ammunition is also problematic. I've had plenty of issues where primers were too hard, or the primer was seated too deeply, or the ammunition itself was just a bad round. I recently shared a video of my Beretta M9A4, a very good reliable pistol, having a hang fire because of bad ammunition. So these are all considerations to make, and these things just occur if you actually shoot that amount of rounds. Hardly anyone goes 2,500 rounds without one single issue, but it does happen, sure. So let's talk about other things that maybe bring this back to earth a little bit more. So you've had 10,000 rounds through your Beretta 92 without any problems at all. Okay, well that might be true, but here's some things to consider. You have a recoil spring in your pistol that's supposed to be replaced every so often. So for example, in 1911s, which a lot of people were mad about in the video I put out about Kimbers, you're supposed to replace that recoil spring every like 2,000 to 5,000 rounds. If you haven't done that, and you've shot 20,000 rounds and you haven't had a single issue, I guess you have the magic recoil spring. Not to mention on a Beretta 92, that recoil spring should be replaced every 5,000 to 10,000 rounds. On a Glock 19, it should be replaced every 3,000 to 5,000 rounds. So you're shooting so much and having zero issues, but somehow your recoil springs are still good to go, even though the manufacturers often tell you, like, hey, you probably want to replace these at a certain point in time. Hence why all these small parts are available for sale. Not just to replace broken parts, but to properly maintain your firearms. And this brings us into the dangerous part of this conversation. People are all over the internet saying, I've gone 20,000 rounds with these rifles and I haven't had to replace anything and everything runs perfect and I never even had to clean it and we're good to go, right? Great, congratulations. I've shot this pistol, 8,000 rounds, not a single problem at all. No cleaning, no issues. Excellent, great to hear. Why are we trying to give this information out there? It's a bragging right more than anything else. But unfortunately, the people who are reading that might actually believe you and then turn around and say, well, I want to get that gun because honestly, I would love to have a gun that lasts 100,000 rounds without anything going wrong. So I guess that's the one I need to get. And luckily, it's only $400. So perfect, right? This is not safe. Why is it not safe? Because you should properly maintain your firearms. You just should. Even if they're not breaking, you should replace parts at a certain interval to make sure that they can work as well as possible for the thing that you're going to defend your life with, right? Maybe you've shot that much with no issues. Maybe you have. Maybe you really, truly did shoot 100,000 rounds through an Anderson rifle without a single problem. That's awesome. Congratulations on your 50 grand to buy ammo with and your Anderson rifle. But if anything goes wrong, or if you need that rifle today because bad things start to happen, you're just going to start that emergency situation with a gun that's on the brink of failure? That's the plan? That's the right way to do things? We're not going to replace anything in the gun? We're going to just keep running it until it breaks catastrophically, maybe the one time I actually need it to perform? That sounds like bad advice. Maybe it'd be a good idea to replace the extractor and extractor spring, maybe replace the gas rings, maybe make sure the ejector is working properly, maybe make sure your barrel's not keyholing. I don't know, but these are just things that I consider because I'd like my guns to work the way they're supposed to when I need them. And that's why this is dangerous if people believe all this over-exaggerated round count hype that just isn't true. because the parts literally can't last that long without replacement. So you either lied about not having issues or lied about not replacing anything, or you're lying about the round count. And most likely, that's the one you're lying about because we come up with these arbitrary numbers in our head that we think other people consider to be reasonable or respectable when it comes to how much you shoot. And so you throw it out there because you want to seem like you know what you're talking about and you want everyone else to respect you because, well, I shoot a lot. And you know what? I shoot a lot, but I don't shoot 100,000 rounds through anything, right? Most of my rifles are still under 3,000 or 4,000 rounds, with the majority of them being under 1,000, because I just can't afford to shoot 100,000 rounds. I just can't. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But this is a lie. We're lying. Stop lying. Just stop doing it. It's not benefiting anybody except for your ego, and it's not helping anybody because you're justifying your purchase and in the meantime probably making someone else believe something that is just not true, and that's never a good way to drive somebody into the right direction. Now, is it? Anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.